Take a look at these. These are ethereal models that have been data mined for patch 11.1. Now, all signs do point to a major ethereal patch in the future, but for some reason, it's patch 11.1 that is added in these models. And taking a look through everything that's been data mined, these do look like customizable humanoid character models, not the sort of bespoke, like kind of baked-in style models that we've seen before. I mean, these do appear to be ready for slotted gear. There are lots of different variants wearing different types of gear. People are not wrong to suspect a new race when they look at these. But of course, it's more than just these models. A colossal ethereal storyline is about to unfold. You see, the Ethereals have watched us since Legion. They slipped that shadow-scrolled coin into our adventure journal in the Dragonflight expansion. We've seen them very recently. They're going to be back in 11.1 because of this data mining. Also, in 11.1.5, we know who they serve, but first, there's a bit of a mystery. Khyvessa. What was she doing? Well, I know that she's a keen user of today's sponsor. Who you can use to save money, be more secure, and access more content. I use them for just that, and at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft, you'll get 4 months free on a 2-year plan backed by their 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, put simply, what a VPN does is it lets you browse the web as if you're anywhere in the world. And this can be, well, so strong it feels like a hack. Here's the best example for me. Airline and car rental pricing is often dynamic based on where you are. And that means you can clear your cookies, fire up Nord, change your region, and you'll often find far more competitive prices. And with that, you can easily save way more than the cost of your subscription. Now, I know that could all sound pretty techy and complex, but no, their app and their browser extension make it super simple. And if you want to say throw it on your router for network-wide security, you can do that too. And of course, this is all great for unlocking region-locked content, which is kind of everywhere. Nord stops your ISP from snooping, for prioritizing certain types of traffic you use over other types of traffic, and you get access to their fantastic threat protection services, along with new features like MeshNet, and you can even bundle in some of their other amazing tools, like NordPass to manage your passwords. And best of all, you get 4 months free with a 2-year plan at nordvpn.com/Bellular Warcraft. So big thanks to them for their years of support in the channel, and let's go. This is Khyvessa, a Nexus princess who we find in the depths of Nerubar, and she's not just some random raid boss. She's a leading member of one of the ethereal cartels, but as of right now, we don't actually know which one. And that's where the whole mystery begins. So let me break the story down. Number 1, Khyvessa recently appeared in Ansarect's court, and when she did, she established herself as a key advisor, but rumors spread about the place that she had dark intentions. And if we continue reading through her dungeon journal, we see abilities that are just a little bit suspicious. As an example, one called Assassination, and a little bit more revealing, one called Queen's Bane. Queen's Bane is described as a poison fit for royalty, which, you just take a look at Ansarek. And as if that wasn't clear enough, the dagger she drops is called Regicide. Regicide as in killing a regent, so a queen. Her target is quite obviously Ansarek, and during our fight, she talks to somebody off-screen saying this.
I infiltrated the Queen's court, Master. She suspects nothing.
Because of the mystery, how she's obviously alive, and what we're about to dive into, I think it's very safe to say we're going to see this character again. But okay, you're probably wondering, who was she paid by? Who is she working to? Well, we know that Xal'atath only saw Queen Ansarek as a tool to further her own ends. And Zal says that her only regret is that Ansarek didn't last just a little bit longer. Now, this is a little easy to get muddled up because of how it's told in-game, but canonically, the events of Nerubar Palace took place before the end of the max level campaign, which is where Xal'atath almost drains Bellular. So, had Queen Ansarek have lasted just a little bit longer, we would have had a far harder time stopping Xal'atath, which would have been good for Zal, which is why Zal wishes Ansarek lasted just a little bit longer. So the most simple theory here is that Khyvessa is working for Xal'atath. That makes sense because we see loads of other Ethereals working for Xal'atath, and perhaps Khyvessa is there as some sort of insurance policy to take out the Queen if she gets a little bit too big for her boots. But there's something that very few people have noticed, and it's this. This is the treacherous transmitter, right? And it's a trinket. It says that it gives you instructions from the Twisting Nether, and when you're using the trinket, basically, that's what you get. You get instructions like following this little purple disc, and if you do that, you get a stat buff. But that's not all that this trinket does. This trinket has got a second secret function that spawns an assassin who will try to kill you, and its name, Ethereum Void Reaper. There's actually a lot to unpack. The name Ethereum will be familiar to those who have played since the Burning Crusade because we met them in the Burning Crusade. They were hell-bent on getting revenge against Dimensius, Xal'atath's old and perhaps current boss who basically destroyed their homeworld. But they went way, way too far. Their leader, this guy Nexus King Salhadar, tried to use the Void against the Void, and in doing so, he completely messed up and he met his own end. This, though, meant there was a power vacuum. It all blew a hole in ethereal politics, and that led to much of the ethereal leadership falling to the Void, and when they did, they formed a group called the Shadowguard. And we have met the Shadowguard recently. They are the very Ethereals who have been working with Xal'atath, and we actually met them years ago on Argus, just as we were gearing up to raid Antorus. And of course, there they were, the Shadowguard, who, at least right now, work for Xal'atath. Who was in the hand of the priest during Legion? Xal'atath, when she was in her blade, when she was watching Illyria. So I truly have to wonder, was Xal'atath still working with the Void when we were on Argus? If that is the case, then Xal'atath literally assisted Illyria in absorbing a Void Naru. And the one character who Xal'atath plans to manipulate, of course, is Illyria. Pretty cool connection. Anyway, when we were there, we met one of these guys. He was called Saprish, and he held the title Ethereum Lord of the Shadowguard. So with that in mind, it seems that the Ethereum basically fell to Void and that the Shadowguard are a sect of them, or something like that. They do appear to be one group. Now, this trinket is also a bit strange in its name. It's called the Treacherous Transmitter, and that does make me think, it's always possible that the assassin was meant for its original wielder. Could there be a bit of intrigue of politics here where somebody was trying to assassinate Kaivessa? That would be cool, but honestly, let's just keep it simple for now, and let's just assume that Kaivessa left that trinket for us, knowing it could track us, and therefore knowing that the assassins could have a go at us. But that's what's already happened. We don't know exactly what patch 11.1 will hold, but patch 11.1.5 will bring more, and it's got a fascinating connection. In patch 11.1.5, which is called Nightfall, we're going to return to an overlooked ethereal plotline. This is one that so few players know about. So at the end of Battle for Azeroth, N'Zoth took his shot and he manifested these horrific visions around the world. If we didn't stop him, these visions would have taken root and plunged Azeroth into a big old nightmarescape, right? So what we did is we got this cloak from Rathian. It was equipped to hold back the madness, and we would charge into these horrific visions, which are going to be returning as a game feature. Now, back then when we went into the horrific visions, we found an ethereal. We found this guy. He's called Zarhal. Now, we have no idea which cartel this guy worked to. We don't really know what he wants or what he's doing in a grander sense. But we do know that he's a trader, that he was seeking odd crystals that were in fact of N'Zoth's essence. And he tells us this, quote, "We too seek to extract power from the mind of N'Zoth." And then, when we hand the crystals in, he says that they would, quote, "serve our purposes nicely." So he's clearly working with someone, we just don't know who. And here's why this is all rather curious. I've got to start by playing you a voice line.
The fall of night reveals her true face.
I played that line to make a point. Chris Metzen at the stage of BlizzCon said that midnight is the ultimate clash between light and void. This patch is going to be called Nightfall. That line says the fall of night. You can see quite obviously how Blizzard are tying all of these things together. And her true face, well, I think that means seeing either what Xal'atath truly is, not just the body that she's hosting, or perhaps a little more realistically, us finally understanding what Xal'atath's grander design and plan is. Whatever they are, though, we know that the immediate upshot is a gameplay feature called Horrific Visions Revisited, where, yes, we'll be going back, we'll be doing Horrific Visions, and the last time we did those, we saw Ethereals extracting power from N'Zoth. And extracting power from void-related things is exactly what Xal'atath has been up to all of this time. There was Galakron's essence in Dragonflight. There was the arcane stores of Dalaran at the start of this expansion. There's all the Black Blood stuff. And most recently, her trying to consume the void of Bellular into the Darkheart. But before being driven back into the shadows by Illyria in that cinematic, Xal'atath tells us that the power of the old gods was now hers. Horrific visions were created by the power of N'Zoth's mind, so therefore seems rather fitting that horrific visions are returning as a game feature. And when they do, I think we're going to learn so much more about Xal'atath, and I have to imagine Blizzard will pay off that ethereal connection that only a few of us noticed all the way back in BFA. So, by now you probably see why these Ethereals can be bad news. Let me explain how it all fits together. To put it all simply then, our new ethereal models are from the Shadowguard. The Shadowguard are a group whose brains have been cooked by the Void. Their motivations are very straightforward. They're working with Xal'atath, as we saw at the end of Dragonflight's epilogue. There, they were basically in a storyline that revealed something absolutely huge, and here's what that is. So, to set the scene, it's the end of Dragonflight. The Radiant song begins. Locust Walker, who is Illyria's mentor, realizes what this Radiant song is, and he realizes it's really terrible news. That's because before the Void God Dimensius manifested and consumed his homeworld, Koresh also began to sing. So Locust Walker thinks, oh dear, the last time I heard this, things really did go quite bad. The Ethereals ignored that warning and they paid the price. They acted too late, but they were able to leverage their mastery of the arcane to erect these giant city-spanning shields, which did solve the Void problem, but it created another one. All of those arcane energies ravaged their bodies, and as a race, Ethereals were only able to keep a physical form by inscribing their souls onto bandages, which is why they look the way that they look. As a people, they swore revenge, but as we saw in the Burning Crusade and onward, many of them since fell to the Void, which does make sense. The more desperate you are, well then the more alluring the empty solutions the Void offers you will seem. And it's these Void fallen ones called the Shadowguard who are our villains. We saw them on Argus during the Legion expansion, and again in Dragonflight's epilogue, where they aided Xal'atath's psychological war on Illyria, and then at the gates of Ulduar tried to break in and steal artifacts. Of course, old god-related artifacts, because that was Yogg-Saron's prison. Of course, we did manage to stop them doing that. But now we see that they are getting new models, and because of that, it's clear that they will be back. Why else would Blizzard make the models? But you're probably wondering, these are all evil. We're not going to be playing as a bad guy. What gives? Well, the good news is there are a few friendly ones left. So far we've covered two ethereal groups, one the Ethereum and then the Shadowguard, which may actually be one and the same now that they've all kind of fallen to Void. But there's two other groups to know about, the Consortium and the Protectorate. So the former are a cartel of traders, and you'll probably know them quite well, be it from the Ecodomes and Netherstorm or the transmogrification providers that you see all across Azeroth. As for the Protectorate, well, we've seen far less of them in-game, but we do know they're on our side. So they were there in the Burning Crusade, and they saw the danger in the Ethereum's blind pursuit of vengeance, and quite obviously, they were proven right. And so as far as we can tell, the Protectorate are basically the final bastion of pre-Fall Koreshi culture. So if we're to work with a group of Ethereals who are decently well put together and official, and are friendly, I have to imagine it will be them. And as for when, either way, I'm going to say soon. Patch 11.1.5 Nightfall will quite clearly establish the main threat of the Midnight expansion. The names just make a lot of sense, but so too does the timing. As an example, patch 10.1.5 Fractures in Time set up Xal'atath and Iridikron, which quite obviously set up what's going on in the War Within. Now, loads of people thought that Koresh would be the War Within's final patch, perhaps a little bit like how Argus was the final patch of the Legion expansion. But that would completely leave out the Haranir. And we know the Haranir are important. They were there in our opening cinematic trailer. So everybody expects the Haranir to be an allied race. They certainly look like they could be one. And the whole plotline they are most connected to, that of the Black Blood, is not resolved yet. I don't even think it's going to be fully resolved in patch 11.1, though 11.1 is set to further its story in the form of a new delve. So here's what I expect. The War Within will end on a Haranir-centric patch. It will likely go to what players are calling the Rootlands. I then think that Midnight patch 12.1 will take us to Koresh, because if you look at the modern World of Warcraft expansion cycle, it does seem that the more ambitious patch that takes you to a very new place does seem to be the first major patch, not the final one. So I think 12.1 will take us to Koresh. I think that's where we'll probably unlock some playable Ethereals. And I'm really looking forward to it. I love science fiction. I've always loved the Ethereals in World of Warcraft. But of course, you've probably missed loads of that juicy Haranir story, and it really is quite cool and intricately put together, even with details in Chronicle Volume 1. So if you want to catch up with all of that and enjoy what's coming next more, well, this video next will get you up to speed.